Let's walk and talk. I think it's important for us to revisit the Swellum again. It's always a challenge in horse sports when you try to launch a new bit. Very few people have even attempted it. They'll launch a new mouthpiece to a loose ring, but it's still a loose ring. The Swellum is different. And so I think it's important for us to talk about some things about the bit that I have learned personally, and also some things people have asked for and been curious about how this bit works. So I figured we'd cover some of those things today, and hopefully that gives you more information and you can try it out for yourself. Also, I'm going to go over a lot of the questions that I've heard and a lot of the things people have asked me about the bit. But if you have other questions about the Swellum, please leave them in the comments. We'll do more videos because we have more models coming up, and I think the more information, the better. Months ago, when the first Swellum intro video went out, I described the Swellum as a dynamic pellum or a stable swale. So a pellum that had a bit more motion to it, or a swale that was more stable and less likely for the horse to pop off of it. I still think those descriptions are valid and correct, but I still get questions about what is its function, what does it feel like? Another way I would try to explain how it feels when you ride it is again by relating it to another bit, a bit that you should know. And that is a pellum of the same design. So in this bit, this Swellum, it's got a port and it's a straight bar. The shanks are fixed and swivel and do not swivel. They're fixed. So if you were to bring out a pellum of the same design, different shanks, of course, but the same mouthpiece, the difference between that pellum and this Swellum is that you'll feel more draw. Meaning, like when you go to kind of sit the horse up, you'll have more ability to do that before the horse loads the bit too much. In a pellum, horses feel very comfortable to load the bit. And that's one of the great qualities of a pellum. The problem is sometimes the horse is loading the bit too much for your preferences. Whether you're, a adult or a child, the amount you can handle is different. And the Swellum can help fix that by giving you a bit more draw, with the horse still staying stable and comfortable. So to make it really simple, if you have a horse that whether going in a pellum or going in loose ring, full cheek, D ring, whatever it is that you really like, but they kind of load that bit too much, and or they're not as stable on that contact, the Swellum can be a great bit to try. Another big question that I've gotten is, how do I use a Swellum? And it's easy for me to say, just use it like a pellum. That would be mostly correct. Or use it like a swale, and that'd be mostly correct as well. Meaning if you use 2 reins on your pellum, use it on the Swellum. If you use 1 rein and a converter, do that. If you use a spur strap or a wrap chain, do that. It's not as much different as you'd expect, but it's a lot more different than it seems. But going deeper than that, or I think it's important to note about the Swellum, and I'll try to hold it here in how it sits on the horse, is you have this ring is where the cheek piece connects. This is where the chain connects. This is where your main rein connects. This is where your second rein connects. So what I do when I'm riding in my Swellum is I will ride mostly on this main rein. And again, the main rein is just like a pellum rein. And so I'll ride on the main rein. And then if the horse is loading the bit a bit too much, then using my pinky, I will engage my second rein, which is connected to this ring. And that will rotate the bit. And that rotation will help lighten the horse off the contact you had only on your main rein. Now, once the horse kind of lightens and draws and comes back, then I will release the second rein. And then I'll ride just on the main rein. And that is so that you're just using the second rein as a guide in case the horse loads too much. Once you don't need the second rein, then I just ride on the main rein. Now again, that's all in my hand, and I do that by playing with my hands, increasing or decreasing the second rein. Now that Swellum I showed you was a fixed shank Swellum. The shanks move together, meaning when I rotate the bit, both shanks rotate together. The other main type of Swellum is one where the shanks swivel. So if I rotate this shank, you can see it does not move the shank closer to you. Why is this interesting? Well, what it allows you to do, if you're looking straight down from this ram's horn to this one, is if I pull the second rein at my pinky, it does this, which is pulling the chain to the right. Or if I rotate like this, it pulls the chain or strap to the left. And using your hands, again, you can do this with the bit, and you can really articulate the bit in a lot more ways. And that gives you more freedom and more options. Kind of like, think of like playing a piano. It gives you twice the number of keys to play with. Now, of course, you need hands that are able to do that. But the swivel, while more complicated to use, isn't some foreign creature to the fixed shank Swellum. If you feel comfortable in a fixed shank Swellum or Pelham, you'll feel just at home with the swivel. It just gives you more options to play with. I would say with the swivel Swellum, it really benefits from using two reins in each hand. I think if you're using a converter, you'll feel less of the action of the swivel. Where in a fixed shank, whether you use two reins or one rein with a converter, the difference won't be that much. So with a swivel, I personally would say use two reins. With a fixed shank, I would use what you're comfortable with. One rein with a converter or two reins. That's totally up to you and what you are comfortable with. So I know I might not have answered specific individual people's questions, but what I tried to do was take all the questions and the curiosities that people had and kind of distill it into what I thought would be most applicable to everyone who's wondering about the bit. In the future, if I get a lot of great questions, I'll answer them individually, but I thought just some more general knowledge about the bit and about my experiences with the bit would be helpful here.